Um, Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for dialing in. Today's session, if you can see my screen, I might just confirm. Wayne, is that screen coming through okay?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Where today's topic is interviewing Narromine Council, and we're lucky to have Mel, Director of Infrastructure Engineering, with us today. This will be sort of like a case study discussion, going through with Mel the experience that Council had with UAV Group with the Drone Program Audit. We'll be going through that in more detail, going through sort of in a Q&A fashion with Mel. And then at the end, there'll be opportunity to ask some questions as well. So without further ado, we might jump straight into it. So Mel, thanks for joining. We got you now. Perfect.
Yep. Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Mel, for joining. We might just start off just before we do introductions, just to give everyone some context about what a drone program audit is, just in a brief summary. We, as UAV Group, assess operations for organisations using drones. We go across a few different pillars: safety, compliance. It's a holistic audit covering as well technology, organisation, systems. So we assess and provide recommendations in line with industry best practice. So that's sort of what we do. We also do consulting off the back of the audits, but the drone program audit is really like a health check for organisations. So I just wanted to give that context. But we might continue on. Mel, we'll get a bit of background, get a little bit of an introduction to yourself, what your role is at Council, give us some background on Council, and then we'll jump into it. So over to you, Mel.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm the Director of Infrastructure and Engineering at Council. My background is actually water and sewer operations. So very, very familiar with the operational side of how things work, but quite new to the design side. So familiar with reviewing design, but not familiar with actually creating designs and surveying and that side of things. So it's been a pretty steep learning curve for me, understanding even what the drone program looks like and how we use drones. And I suppose it's important for me to note here that I'm not personally out there flying the drones. The drone and design team sit under me in my portfolio. So I obviously have a bit to do with them, but I'm not personally out there using them. So if there's any super technical questions at the end, I probably can't answer that. In terms of Narromine, we're a smallish council in central west New South Wales, and we're a pretty small team. So our design team's sort of only 4 or 5 people, and we're spread across different aspects, not just purely on design. We're doing a whole heap of technical different things as well. So yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much, Mel. We'll jump across just maybe a little bit more on Council. Just talking about regional councils. The key areas of focus for Council today, the key opportunities in regional Council, and maybe any challenges if you just want to touch on that briefly.
Yeah, I suppose if anyone else here is from Council, we all have the same areas of focus and opportunities and challenges. But for me, the main focus is delivering value for the community. So the challenges obviously are being in a remote area, limited contractors and limited trained staff, and obviously escalating costs recently. And the good thing about, I guess, specifically related to drones is as we go through today, I think we can talk about how drones and I guess emerging technology as well is able to really address a couple of those challenges. So, able to find a bit of reduced cost and potentially able to, there's not heaps of training necessarily needed to be able to get the skills needed to be able to do surveying work and a lot of checks just by within a small team. So drones can really help, and technology can really help with that skill gap, I suppose.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mel. So it's really about trying to deliver value to the community and all that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely. We'll just jump into the first sort of question specific to the drone operations at Council. Maybe just tell us a little bit about how Council uses drones today, what the use cases are, the real benefits that you guys are experiencing from using drones, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I guess that's the really obvious one that probably everyone who has a drone is doing. We're doing surveys with drones, so putting them up in the air and just being able to get get our ground levels, get any other levels that we need, and then obviously our aerial photos. So they're probably the main reasons why we bought the drone in the first place. But since we've got the drone, we've moved into other areas that we can use it as well. So a couple of the things we currently do on a rotating program is we fly the drone over our waste depots. So, and then we're able to map the areas of waste within the depot to determine the volume increases. This is really important at Narromine because one of our waste depots is pretty close to closure and we don't have much space left. So being able to get a really accurate understanding of how much waste has gone in over the last sort of 6 months, 12 months is really important to understand the actual final end date of that waste depot. So that's a really good way that we've been doing it. We've also been using the similar technology on job sites for the roads when people deliver materials, so crushed rock or quarry material, being able to fly over the top and map how much has been delivered to ensure that we're getting invoiced properly from the haulage companies. And we've found some significant savings in that when we've been invoiced for the wrong amounts. So that's been good. And we also have quite an interesting project going on at the moment where we're building wetlands for stormwater storage. The way that our design was for the stormwater was that we needed to have a certain amount of stormwater space at the wetland, so a certain cubic meter of volume, and we've been able to fly the drone over to confirm that we are meeting those volumes that we set in the design, which is obviously really important for stormwater management moving forward. Apart from that, just during the floods a couple of years ago, we were able to get some really good videos and shots of where the flooding occurred, so able to see that damage and where it happened. That's actually been invaluable for me, who wasn't actually here during the floods, looking and understanding what sort of damage was caused and where the river was actually going, because obviously it was so much higher than normal. It's hard to really appreciate without some of those visuals. And then I suppose I've just talked about it, but all of those things definitely save time and money. We've been able to use a lot of the aerial footage for flood funding and for grant funding to prove that we need to improve structures. We've been able to save money on contractors because we're actually able to check their invoices. So we query them if they tell us they've done a certain amount. We query them and say, have you actually? And then on top of that, we're able to use the drones for surveying quite effectively. So we tend not to employ contractors to survey works. We can do a lot of it in-house quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fantastic. Awesome. So it's really like delivering those benefits and councils using the drones for surveying in-house, making sure that subcontractors are accurate. That's awesome. So fantastic. So just further on, diving further into the drone program, in terms of the drone program for council, this is something that a lot of councils are doing today, but some aren't. So maybe for those who aren't, and also relevant to those who are, maybe they want to expand. In terms of the investment, what's the sort of I guess advice or what's your feedback on Narromine's council experience with drones? Like, it sort of helped save money, helped save time. I think you mentioned it's definitely providing some benefits. Maybe just we can go into that in a bit more detail.
Yeah. I guess my advice is that the drone can be as useful as you want it to be. There's so many different functions that the drone can provide for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so if you start using it 100%, my findings are that it is going to save you time and money. For us, we definitely see a time saving. So we're able to pump through a lot more work internally than we would be able to if we just had like the old-fashioned sort of stick GPS rovers that you go out with. So we're definitely able to save that time, which then also saves us with needing to go to contractors. So it's sometimes it's a little bit difficult to specifically say, but I think easily we would pay for the drone within 2 years of purchase. For anyone who's wondering, at council, we actually have our drone set up as a plant item. So every time we do a project, we just book the drone back to that project, and then that helps pay for it and all of its maintenance. Apart from that, I think you're only limited by your imagination really with the drones, because there's heaps of different opportunities.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mel. So it's sort of like for the stockpile management and checking the contractors, you're getting that payback pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
that's really providing that benefit. Awesome. We'll move on now to some more questions related to the drone program audit around risk management, in terms of the kind of key risks and challenges, because everything at council you need to obviously measure and see the risk versus reward, or what the potential hazards would be. WHS is obviously a key focus across councils, and especially Narromine. So I guess in terms of council operating the drones, what are some of the main things that are top of mind in terms of the key risks to using drones at council? So regulatory compliance, keeping up with safety best practice, maintenance. What would you say some of the key things are there?
Yeah, so probably like anyone else at council, drones are a small part of your operations. So, you're always under the pump. So you need the drone, you go use it, you throw it up in the air, you're trying to do things as quick as possible. So I think a big risk is just how we're looking after our drones and how we're tracking the maintenance and how we're actually monitoring how they're performing. We had an issue earlier in the year. I think one of the guys was controlling the drone from a tablet, and it was up in the air, and it was quite a warm day, and the tablet overheated, and they weren't able to like the screen just turned off on the tablet. The drone's still up in the air, and they're unable to get it to come down. Thankfully, they were able to sit in the car air conditioner for a while, cool the tablet enough to get it to land. And it did come back safely, but that really got us thinking that what happens if we hadn't been able to get the tablet cool? Like, it would have been sort of still stuck up there. If it had fallen out of the sky, what protocols did we have in place, and what checks have we been doing to sort of show that we were actually being diligent? So I just think, like anything in council, you always run out of time, and it's the safety aspects and the maintenance that sometimes get missed. So
Yep.
for me, that's definitely what I'm worried about, and also the record keeping as
Yep.
well. So just knowing what records we have to keep, and then actually following through and making sure we are keeping them.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Fantastic. So that's actually a valid point, because really valid point there with the controller, making sure that the device is up, because a lot of the organization might be using an older tablet or smartphone. So that's really the weakest link, so to speak, making sure that that's up to speed, and that's a great reminder for everyone there. So that's fantastic. Thanks for that, Mel. So we'll go across to the some of the things that council got out of the engagement with UAV Group, in terms of the benefits. What was the real, I think from council's perspective, what was the benefit that council got out of conducting the drone program audit, from council's perspective?
One of the things that I guess concerns me, I said at the beginning, I don't have a background in drones. I'm not familiar really with them. And the regulatory environment with drones is changing all of the time. So there's no one in council that's really keeping up to date with those requirements, with the regulations. And so it's really great to have someone external that's familiar with all of those, with all of the regulations and legislation. It's really great for someone else to come in and take a deep dive into what we're doing with our program, and making sure that what we say that we're doing matches what we are doing. So that external review with, obviously completely non-biased external review coming in and checking, I now have peace of mind that if CASA came in and audited us, or if we did have an incident, I can hand on heart say that we were doing everything that we could to make sure that we were compliant and doing everything properly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the privacy risks are also of concern to me. We have a public constituent that is not necessarily super technology savvy, and sometimes people are concerned about their privacy. And I can imagine, people from the public coming and complaining that council were using drones inappropriately. So it's really refreshing for me to know that we've been audited, and we've proved that our processes are correct, and we're going with the correct legislation. So that's probably the main thing for me, and also just having someone dedicated to look into the task, because as I've said, council gets busy and we don't have time to look at things from start to finish. We often get pulled away, so just having the knowledge that that's all being covered off is really good.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great point. And the interesting thing there was the public complaints. Like that's a real valid point, even for businesses, because you know, anyone can make a complaint to CASA on the website, or directly to the organization. And if you get asked the question, oh, were you flying correctly, or were you adhering to, you know, the regs, regulations, or safety best practice? Yeah, having that external view is valuable, because yeah, the you know the general public can have those sort of views there, and especially for council as well. So that's fantastic. We will just go to the next point here. Question 6, just in terms of sort of summarising the what's next. You know, you mentioned today you're using for stockpile measurements, using them in the surveying, imaging. Is there anything else on the roadmap for council in the future?
At this point in time, the main things that we're focusing on is software automation. So at the moment, it is a little bit cumbersome getting information from the drone into CAD. There's a lot of sort of manual intervention, whereas we're just working through a process with the software at the moment. So we basically can just have it on the drone and then it will automatically push across to AutoCAD. So that's our main focus at the moment, but we're always interested in listening to experts and attending, I guess, sessions like today, just to see what else is out there, because once you have the drones, I think there's so many options to you, and it's not difficult or expensive to implement other changes. I suppose the other thing that I'm really focused on is just increasing the number of internal designs that our team does. So historically, we've outsourced a lot of our design work, but looking to bring as much as possible in-house and using technology to support that, so that we can get through work more quickly.
Yep. Oh, fantastic. That's great. So I guess yeah, that's fantastic, Mel. So we'll move to some Q&As in just a sec. Was there anything else just to sort of touch on, Mel, or was that sort of everything there?
I just make a final comment that if you're thinking of, if you already have a drone program and you're not sure whether to go ahead with an audit process, from our point of view, the actual audit process was really simple and easy, and it just provides that peace of mind, because you know that you're compliant with the legislation. So it's pretty simple and easy. It's not like a full-on audit that you can full-on in terms of time-consuming audit that I know we have in other areas of the business. So it's not like that. But yeah, well worth doing, and I'm glad that we went through the process.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mel. We'll come back in just a sec. I think there's a few questions which will come through, and we'll go through them in just a sec. But just briefly before we move to the Q&A component, just hand over to Wayne briefly just to give us a bit more context around what we do here at UAV Group, and then we'll move to some Q&A. So Wayne, over to you.
Okay, thanks for that, Glenn. Yeah, I think the key things that we'd like to get across today and leave you with is that should you need to conduct an audit really to have an outside look at what your organisation is doing. You know, we tell people that without an audit, you're just checking your own homework. And how many times, and the example I use is how many times had people you send an email off and then you look at it 3 days later and thought, how did I let that spelling mistake go? How did I let that poor grammar go? Checking your own homework, you know, whilst it sounds good, doesn't work. An outside review is good because you know that someone else has checked it and doesn't have any preconceived ideas of what should be there or shouldn't be there. They just read what's on the page and look at your operation, the way your operation is being handled. And it is a review. It's not like a CASA audit where you come in and the regulator's there to smack you if you've done something wrong or to advise you. We actually have a consultative approach, and we'll come and review your operation and then tell you where we think you're not quite compliant with the regulations, and suggest where you can make changes and how you can make changes. And we'll also look at the best practice of industry and tell you where we think that you're doing it this way. We've seen it done other ways. It's up to you to decide whether or not you want to adopt some of the ideas that we may suggest as an outside organisation looking at what you're doing. It's also a soft introduction and preparation for a CASA audit should you have one, because you'll feel more comfortable about what's going to happen, because our audits or our reviews, basically for the first 2/3 of them, of the assignment, it basically follows the same format as CASA do. It's only in the last third where we adopt more of a consultative approach that we're a bit different to CASA. And, you know, in the worst case scenario, should you end up in litigation with someone because you've dropped the drone into the childcare centre and slashed a kid's arm, or because Murphy's alive and well, the worst case scenario will be what happens to you if you get into litigation. You know, it also gives the council executive peace of mind, which is what Mel was talking about. You know, the council executives don't necessarily go there and fly the drones and understand what's happening on a day-to-day basis. But when you've had an external audit, you've got a piece of paper and a document. You know, it's probably a 20-page document that shows you that your operations that are operating beneath you and for you are best practice and in compliance with the regulations and are safe. Some of the other benefits that come with a UAV program drone audit is we also include a 12-month advisory service. And I don't know how many of you are aware, but this week the MOS changed from the December edition, which was the last change to it, December last year. This week a new edition's come out, and there's an extra 3 pages in the MOS. Now, if you had an audit from us and you're part of our advisory service, you would have already had an email telling you that these 3 pages in there extra affect your organisation and you'll need to do this, this, and this, or this is what the changes mean. And so that in itself was worthwhile, because I'm pretty sure that most organisations don't sit there and keep up with the regulations, and that's one of the big benefits of working with the UAV group. So those operating in the sub 2 kilo sphere, thinking that we don't need an operations manual, we don't need to be checked. Well, you don't need a piece of paper. However, the thing you probably want to consider, and the question you want to ask yourself is, should something untoward happen and litigation does occur, what have you got to lose? And also, after you've answered the question, what you've got to lose, then think about how having documented processes and procedures will protect you. And we can help you with putting them in place. And we have an operation where we call taking people from zero to hero. So it helps if you want to just start the drone journey because you've seen things or heard things, good things about drone, and you want drones and you want to start them up and you don't know where to start. I think in the next slide or so, there's some contact details. Ring Glenn and we can organise a Teams meeting and discuss where we can take you into the future. Yeah, back to you, Glenn.
Fantastic. Thanks, Wayne. So yeah, it's really just talking through, you know, for those organizations out there set up drone programs, it's not sort of just set and forget, because things change, technology changes, safety best practices change. It's good to review these sort of on an annual or biannual basis. So thanks so much for that, Wayne. We'll just move now to some Q&A. And we've got a few minutes, so we're good for time. But we'll just go through some Q&A, and I think there was 2 questions which was asked thus far. I think for yourself, Mel. The first one there from John is, do all your pilots sit under the design section?
Hi, John. No, they don't. And I might just answer both at the same time, if that's okay, Glenn.
Yeah,
so,
go for it.
So the first question is, do all your pilots sit under the design section? And then the second question is asking about how did you go with scaling up your use of drones across the different units of council? Any lessons learned? So they kind of go together. So John, to answer your question, no, our pilots don't all sit under the design section, but all of the work that, like all of the data from the drones is processed by the design section. So we might have a project manager go out and take some photos with the drone, or we might have someone go out and do it would be unlikely to do a survey, but we do have our asset inspector who goes out and does do survey work, but then they bring the drone back to the office, and it's pretty much 2 people in the office that sit in the design team that process the data and push it out to whatever format it needs to be. So that sort of answers your question, and then it leads me into Bryce's question, which is, we haven't scaled up across multiple business areas in terms of the data. The data all sits just within the design team, and then we just push the information out from there as need be. Because we're quite a small council, mostly it is just the design team that's using it. But yeah, we can sort of just share that information as needed, whether it's photos or different bits and pieces. And in terms of scaling up, I think the key thing is just to have a team and management that are proactive. So I'm super lucky here because my staff and managers love using the drone. So they're like, hey, Mel, there's this option and there's this option. Can we do this? Because this is going to let us do this. So that's sort of the way that it's worked for us. Like, my staff have just identified opportunities because they're interested in technology. And then we've kind of just trialed it and gone ad hoc. And we often are just getting like little subscriptions to bits and pieces that make things better. I personally would like to see if we can streamline it a little bit more, because we have like a $70 subscription here, a $20 subscription there. So it's like a little bit of a mishmash. But I'm just lucky in that my team wants to move forward. So I'm not sure if I've got any real advice. I think for us, it would actually be really difficult to manage the drones across multiple business units because of the way that we've got it set up at the moment. So sorry, that's probably not very helpful, but that's our experience.
It's the facts.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks so much for that, Mel. So it's like, I think one of the key points, Mel, you said we've spoken about is the team's really keen to use drones, and that's a real big point that can really get the adoption up when there's that sort of eagerness, I guess you could say.
Yeah, 100%. If you've got a team that want to push drones, like, give them the power to do it, because it's great and they'll save time and you'll get the money back eventually. And I guess that's the other thing I didn't touch on. Like, there's no real point, in my opinion, there's no real point buying a drone if you haven't got someone who's going to push it, because it will just end up sitting on a shelf, not being used. So think, don't just go out and buy a drone because of today's session. Think about how you could use it and then buy the drone to implement that.
I see, Wayne, you got your hand up. Do you want to add anything else?
I was just going to add to Mel's comments about how it saves. I think a lot of the people I've spoken to on drones, when they've gone from the zero to into drones, they're saying it's putting hundreds of hours back in to their working year because they've saved so much time with it. Like, I think one of the chaps we spoke to out in Narromine actually said, when I take this picture with the drone, it saves me writing a 2-page report. How fantastic is that?
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. Yeah, no, that's it. It's those benefits there. Fantastic. So I can see that's all the questions. If there's any more questions, the contact details are here. Feel free to give us a buzz or shoot us an email. The email address outlined there. If you've got any questions for Mel, feel free to come through to us and I can pass those on if that's okay, Mel. We'll collate those. And yeah, if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out. We're looking to sort of have some informative sessions continuing. So into the future, having more of these, and if you've got any advice or input into these, feel free to reach out. So without further ado, we might conclude. But thanks again so much, Mel, for joining, and look forward to speaking in the future.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me, guys. See you later.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, everyone.